Hey, pre-algebra people, we are starting chapter 4. This chapter is going to take several weeks. It covers a whole bunch of super important stuff that we do leading into algebra. And you can see here it's all about graphing and writing linear equations. So go ahead and make sure you put your name on here and your hour. And then flip the page and let's get going. So, a linear equation is an equation whose graph is a line. See that root word right there, linear. The points on the line are solutions to the equation. You can use a graph to show the solutions of a linear equation. The graph below represents this equation. So you can see here you can make a table and then you plot each of these points onto that table and it makes a line when you connect them. Okay, so let's go down here and start doing some problems actually. Here are your steps for graphing linear equations. Step 1 is going to be to make a table of values, and you can see the tables down here. And here's the scoop. When you make a table of values, you get to choose the x values. Your science teacher would tell you then that that is the independent variable. It is the variable that you get to choose. So you get to choose your x values. Most of the time, unless we tell you to use something different, we are going to use -1, 0, and 1. Okay, because it's good to know what's going on the negative side of the graph, what's happening at 0, it's easy to plug in, and what's going on the positive side of the graph. So, make a table of values. We choose the x values. We did that. So the equation, this up here is the equation. It tells us what y equals. So this helps us find y. What we have to do is take the x's and plug them into that equation. So we're going to do that work right here. So we're going to do -2 times -1 plus 1. And then we're going to do -2 times 0 plus 1. And then we're going to do -2 times 1 plus 1. Okay, so where's that? Notice the only thing that changed was this right here, and that is your x value. So then you do the math, and if I go too fast, you can always just pause it. I know these in my head. You would calculate it, multiply, add 1. Times 0 is 0 plus 1. These make ordered pairs. Ordered pairs are always x comma y. So I'm just writing these as ordered pairs. And then step 2 is to plot those ordered pairs. So you go over to your graph. Remember when you plot points, you always... Okay, so, all right, sorry. Little interruptions there. So when you're plotting your points, you always start at the origin, which is 0, 0. So x is -1, so that's left 1, and then up 3. Then 0, comma 1, 0 right and left, and up 1. 1, comma -1, oops, forgot my parenthesis there, is right 1 and down 1. Okay? And then since these are linear equations, these will connect to make a line. If they don't, you know you have a problem. You'll also notice that anytime we use a pattern in our x's, you should also have a pattern in your y's. So this pattern is going down 2 and down 2. If you don't have a constant pattern, something's wrong. If these don't form a line, something's wrong with your math. So you guys will grab a ruler when we're in class. It's hard for me to use a ruler on here. Do the best you can to connect that and make a straight line as well as you can. So make a straight line and also make sure you put arrows on the end because this line and the points that make it do not stop just because we run out of space on the graph. All right, so here is a key idea. Okay, so these are going to come really on the next page, but we also graph sometimes horizontal, that is this green line, and we also graph vertical lines. So horizontal, vertical. Go ahead and flip the page and then we'll talk about those. So I think at first it's good to graph these using the same method that we have been. Okay, so I think it's still good on these type to have a table. So let's make ourselves a table. So it gives us a hint here that we're graphing horizontal and vertical lines that we just talked about. So horizontal and vertical. All it tells us is that y equals -3. So when you try to fill out your x and y table, all we know, all this tells us is that y is -3. What's y? -3. What's y? -3. So let's kind of start looking over here. Where is y? Here's y. Where is it -3? It's down here. Okay, so there's a -3 on the y. What if x is 3? If y is -3, that'd be here. What if x is 5? If y is -3, that'd be here. What if x is -5? If y is -3, that would be here. So that makes us a horizontal line. And basically what we just found out is that y can be anything. So I'm literally writing the word anything. Y can be anything. Sorry, x can be anything, but y is always -3, and that's what makes that horizontal line. Okay, and then the same for this one. Let's make an xy table. All this equation tells us is that x is 2, x is 2, x is 2. So based off what we have said over here, I bet you know what I'm going to say for y. But let's find where x is 2, which is right here. Where else is x 2? Well, if x is 2 up here when y is 4, x is still 2 when y is 6, x is still 2 down here when y is -5. So in this case, y can be anything. And this makes a vertical line. So horizontal, vertical. All right, moving on. You have a whole bunch, well, you have 4 on your own to do here. So graphing this on your own, you're going to use -1, 0, and 1 for the x's. You're going to plug those x's in right here to find your y's. You're going to plot those points. And then down here, this one is a little bit different. So we're going to add a few words in here. Okay, so this one is special. And put a big star here. And we're going to be looking at this. Oh no, there's a fraction. So we're going to say when there is a fraction in front of the x, so that's called the coefficient, we are going to choose values of, I didn't mean to say of, we're going to choose values that are multiples of the denominator. So in this case, and that is just so that we can avoid having to graph fractions. So in this case, our denominator is 2. So instead of using our typical -1, 0, and 1, we're going to use -2, 0, and 2. When you do this math, you're going to take those and plug them in here. You're going to wind up with whole numbers from y, so then you'll be able to graph them. If you have to use a calculator, you do to do those fractions. Okay, and then there's still a couple of on your owns on the next page. So remember, this is one of the special types that we did before. And so you are not really going to need that middle part. And then same with down here on number 4. This is another one of those special types. So you are not going to need this part. Think about what your x's and y's are. Go back, look at your examples. All right, and then we have one real life application problem. So I have already put some numbers and labels on my graph. So I'm going to go down here to where you can see this. And why don't you pause this video and write these. So I started going by 1s here, and then I just went by 5s here. Oh, I accidentally skipped a little bit. I should not have skipped 3 spaces here. So I'm a little off. Really, that 10 should be here. Skip 120, skip 130, skip 140. So go ahead and pause and write that down. And then when you're ready, come back up. So this problem is asking us about the wind speed, y, in miles per hour of a tropical storm. Here it is. X is the number of hours after the storm enters the Gulf of Mexico. Graph the equation. So instead of using our typical numbers that we've been using, -1, 0, and 1, we are definitely not going to use negative because you can't have negative hours since a storm entered the Gulf of Mexico. And then we're going to spread this out a little bit. Let's find out what happens, what the wind speed is right when it enters. Let's find out like 5 hours later, 10 hours later, and let's even do 15. So, because tropical storms, hurricanes last for a while, and then we have to come back and answer our question. So based on the equation up here, it says that we have to do 2 times x. So in this case, 2 times 0 plus 66. Then we're going to do 2 times 5 plus 66, 2 times 10 plus 66, and 2 times 15 plus 66. If I'm going too fast, you can always pause it and write things down. Doing the math, these are the numbers that we get. How do we do that math? We just simply use order of operations. We multiply, then we add. If we write these as ordered pairs, then we can graph them. Again, if you need to pause and write this down, go ahead and pause. It's the beauty of the video. All right, then we're going to graph these. So our points are 0, 66. So here's 0. Here's 65. So 66 is just going to be a little over that. At 5, we had 76. So here's 5. Follow that up. There's 75. And there's about 76. At 10, we are at 86. So that's about right there. At 15, we are at 96. So that's about right there. Again, try to use a straight edge. We'll make sure and get those out in class. And I'll do the best I can. Ooh, that's pretty good. Put an arrow on one end. All right, you can tell I'm doing this at school. Anyway, so it's going to be a ray. We don't put an arrow on this end because you cannot go negative hours, like we said before a storm enters the Gulf of Mexico. So there's our ray. And now we have it graphed. We have to go back up and answer this one last question. So when does the storm become a hurricane? If you look at this info right here, it is when it reaches 74 miles per hour. So let's go to our graph. So on our graph, we're going to find that about right here, here's 75. And so you're going to go over from that. So 74 will be about right here. So I don't see it yet. Looks like about right here. So follow that down. And so approximating, it looks like it's about 4 hours after it came into the Gulf of Mexico is when it became a hurricane. So that's it for today. Make sure to go back and do your on your owns if you didn't already. Nice work.